Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Dave Bradley-Jones. Welcome to our PlayoutONE July webinar. Tonight is a truly international event. Fellow director Phil Johnson is with me here in Liverpool tonight, home of the Beatles, and now also home to a brand new radio station. Yes, Bliss Radio. Big congratulations to Sean Saunders and his dedicated team. We are so proud at Radio Station Solutions to have been part of this station from the early days. From the studio build to installing PlayoutONE Pro. It's been an absolutely proud moment. And thank you, Sean, for letting us use your studios here in Liverpool tonight to do this lovely broadcast. It's going to be absolutely amazing. Also with us on the webinar tonight, we have fellow director for Radio Station Solutions, Chris Oakley. He's back at RSS HQ. More from these guys very, very shortly. But tonight, it's all about music scheduling. And we've already heard him rustling in the background. And I can tell you right now that we are so proud to have CEO of Music One here for the next hour. Ladies and gentlemen, from Texas, USA, it's Steve Warren. Good evening, Steve.
Woo! Hey. I want everybody not to worry about why I'm dressed today. I'm in my shorts. You know, I don't look too good.
Well, Steve, we've had absolutely fantastic weather here in the UK as well. I think we've been pushing almost records of 35 degrees at some parts. So it's,
well, that matches
the Texas weather. Ready for this.
Close to where we're at. We're at 38 right now in Austin. I'm actually just a little south of Austin, San Marcos, but it's Austin Metro is where I'm at.
Perfect. Well, a lot of people will already know about your product, Music One. And tonight, the whole aim is to maybe just shed a little bit more light on Music One and how great it is at delivering music rotations, but also music scheduling in general, because it is an absolute art form, isn't it?
Yes.
You're being so modest.
Well, it's a simple thing to do, but it's in its basics. I mean, the basics are in the hour, you want to sound this way. You want certain kinds of songs to flow into other kinds of songs. Well, let's take a typical top 40 radio station. How I started. You had your hot songs, you had your up-and-comers, you had your oldies, and you had something that, you know, might be the new ads. And the first rotation that I ever had in a radio station was play from stack A, stack B, stack C, pick an oldie, and then do it again. And that's what you did around the clock. A, B, C, oldie. And the disc jockey had freedom. Now, this is a long time ago. This is before automation. It was coming into play. We're still already tapes at that time. But so it's ultimately simple, but let me see. My audio okay? I've got a little thing here that says low system resources.
You're a little crackly there, Steve. Give the box a shake. See if it gets a bit better. But I think you're good. You're good now. Yes, I mean.
Okay. Well, I had another window open, and so maybe that's what it was. I'm also going to close that Slack screen over there in case that was online.
Yeah, give that a close. Close everything down. So you were saying that obviously, you know, in back in the day, the jock would have ultimate freedom, and then that obviously moved, didn't it, to someone having freedom.
Okay, so we move into formatted radio era where we really started learning how to do this job well, and radio programmers learned that they really needed to control the exposure of songs and the placement of those songs. And here's a short example. People's radio listening is habitual. You wake up at the same time, you turn your radio on at the same time every day when you're either commuting or making breakfast. You go to lunch at the same time. I mean, you tend to listen at, you know, on in a certain schedule. Now, if you get up every morning at 6 o'clock and you listen from 6 until 6:30, and you're listening to the pop music station that plays, you know, today's hits and recent hits, and you hear the same song between 6 and 6:30 3 or 4 times a week, that's not good.
No.
You also have to play that song. You know, as a professional radio program director, you know that success comes from playing a limited number of hits over and over and over, whatever your format is. Now, what's a limited number can be argued, but the most limited number I ever saw was 40 records. That's literally all they were playing. Most pop music stations in the States now are playing somewhere between, I'm talking commercial broadcast radio, are playing somewhere between a low of, say, 400 songs up to an oldie station, maybe 12 or 1,400 songs. Now, these are commercial terrestrial broadcast radio stations. That's a limited number of records. And you got to play those over and over, and it works. We can argue this, you know, with people outside the business all the time, but a limited number of songs repeated over and over is how you have a successful radio station. Mm-hmm. Now, when you repeat those over and over, there are the caveats about my 6 to 6:30 thing. I've got hots. I've got 11 songs in a heavy rotation. These are my most important records right now. You know, when Havana is the #1 record in my country, that's in my power rotation. So I want Havana to come up. I pre-plan it 7 times a day, about every 3 hours.
But what you've actually said there is one of the key questions that I was going to ask you. And I have to say, for our Facebook followers who are watching live right now, if you do have a question for Steve that is Music One related or music scheduling related, do pop it in the chat window and we will come to it as we go through the webinar process. But you were talking there about the pre-planning, and one of the little finer points I wanted to ask you was, we know that Music One and obviously PlayoutONE talk to each other and they work in tandem. But why is Music One better than using PlayoutONE's inbuilt Auto DJ? And I think you've pretty much just nailed it right there. It's all about the pre-planning stage, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Well, let's go back to my original example. Play from stack 1, stack 2, stack 3, and then repeat. Auto DJ is pretty much like that. You know, you say, play from this category, then this category, then this category, and then repeat it. Well, there are other rules that go into this, like I don't want to play 2 slow songs back to back. I don't want to play this kind of song next to that kind of song. What happens when that kind of song comes up in stack B, or, you know, that category in Auto DJ, and a song, you know, that you don't want playing comes up in stack C? So you've got 2 songs, say they're both slow songs, and you've said in your formatting, do not play 2 slow songs in a row. Auto DJ can kind of separate that. I've never used it. I mean, I suppose you have a function in it. Most automation and playout systems have some rotational things inside them, kind of like Auto DJ. But the limits are with, making those kind of decisions about what to do when you've got, you know, 2 songs that clash according to my formatting rules back to back. And also, the other problem with Auto DJ is you really can't control and know in advance what's going to happen with your rotation groups.
No, there's no.
Are the songs in that rotation group going to come up over and over at the same time of day? I'm going to start Music One. We probably should take a look at this while we're chatting instead of looking at a blank screen.
While you're opening that, Steve, yeah, I think that's because that was quite interesting. It was an eye-opener for me. When I was told about pass orders. Now, of course, the Auto DJ doesn't do that. It just does it literally one track, then it has to do the next one and the next one. But with obviously the pass orders, it can schedule all the A-lists first in all their positions, and then all the other ones, and the different ones like the rotations, the currents, and all that sort of stuff, whereas the Auto DJ doesn't do that.
Okay, let me show you what is the most important thing about Music One, or a professional music scheduler. This window right here, this is for, by the way, this is a station that I personally schedule every week. This is a station, a classic old-time country radio station that's in the suburbs of Phoenix, Arizona in the States. And on this station, I'm only using 4 groups of songs, and these are really old country songs. Now, this group right here is my something called Way Back. There's 85 songs in that category. In the category I call Legends, click on that, and there
Who's a country legend, Steve? Tell us. Who's big in the States at the minute, country-wise?
Well, these are legends. These are going back, and if you look at those names, you see those. There's Haggard and Jennings and Jones and Buck Owens and Charlie Pride and those guys. The big country acts, the stadium acts in the States are people like Blake Shelton, and Justin Aldean, and these guys are the new rock and rollers. They're filling stadiums. They're pretty hard and loud, But, the big acts are Kenny Chesney, still, Blake Shelton, Keith Urban, the Aussie. But those are the guys that are having hits today. So anyway, back to what I'm looking at. Here are these legends. Now, there's 250 of them. Now, let's look at Dolly Parton, Silver and Gold. All right. What's going to happen to Dolly Parton over the next couple of weeks? Silver and Gold. I'm going to look and say, okay, if Dolly first plays here at 6 a.m. on a Monday, I've got it selected up at the top, based on my rotation setup, Dolly is next going to come up 2 days later on Wednesday at 11, and she's going to come up 2 days later at Friday. Next week, Monday on the overnight show. She'll repeat in the 6 a.m. hour on a Wednesday a week from now, and on like that. That's what this category is going to do. Here's Power. This one has 381 tracks. Now, what this is avoiding is somebody that wakes up every morning at 6 a.m. and hears kind of pretty much the same songs. What we're looking at here is a math equation.
Okay, so on the screen, Steve, then we're just seeing little dots here. Is it all about just having a nice pattern, or is there any maths to this to kind of create this great rotation that you're after?
Yeah, the rotation is always based on two numbers. The first number is how many songs are in the category. Let's look at Way Back Country here. There's 85 songs in that category. Now, the next number is how many times is that category used in my formatting. Now, I click this little box right here, and it says Show Calls. That means how many times am I calling for way back in my formatting hours? And this is over a 2-week period of time. And we see that I'm asking for 2 waybacks every hour except for Sunday morning at 7 o'clock on this radio station. So there are, it shows at the top, 334 calls. I'm going to play a wayback 334 times in a week. And since I've got 85 songs in that category, this is what's going to happen to those songs. A song, a single song. And I can look at this and I can know that over a 2-week period, any one of these songs in the wayback is not going to repeat at the same time of day over and over. It's not going to repeat in the same day part over and over. It's going to be spread the way I want it. Now watch what happens if I change the number of songs that are in the category. Right here, this is a planning tool. So I've got 85 songs in here. If I were to take 5 songs out of this group and just rolled with 80, then I've got a really crappy rotation. This is not good at all, because what's going to happen to one song is going to happen to all of those songs. Another song from this category first schedules at 10 a.m. on a Monday, or it schedules at 10 a.m. on a Wednesday. Where is that song going to come up again? Well, over the next 2 weeks, it's going to come up in middays 2 more times, and both of them are like within an hour of each other. Now, if a listener is coming back to my station every day, a really strong listener, over a 3 or 4, week period of time, or 3 or 4 month period of time, they wouldn't know that I had 85 tracks here. They're only hearing the tracks that wind up getting scheduled midday, so they might think that I'm playing half the number of songs in this category that I'm actually playing. Now, listeners have no concept of this, of course. This is very inside baseball, this is very important stuff. But a listener will notice if I am hearing a song that I don't like too much. So maybe this listener listening to this classic country song really, really likes this Fair and Young song. It's a song that was written by Willie Nelson a long time ago. It's one of his first big, it may have been his first big hit, I think, called Hello Walls. Okay, so I'm a classic country fan. I really like that song. But for some reason, I hate Marty Robbins, who sings El Paso, right? Which was a huge record in 1960, I think it was. All right? Over a 2-week period of time, if I hear that Hello Walls 3 times, I think, man, this is really a great radio station. If, on the other hand, I hear that song I don't like 3 times over 2 weeks, well, I might start going looking for someplace else.
So what's the magic answer then in your long, history of music scheduling? What should stations be aiming for? Or is it down to literally, the format that they're operating?
It's the format they're operating on. Like we've got jazz stations that don't have turnovers or classical stations that use Music One, where they might not repeat anything for 2 or 3 weeks.
You'll have to explain turnover. Some of our viewers may not know what that is.
Turnover is how quickly a song gets replayed after you schedule it. So the turnovers that I always used for Top 40 was either a 3 hour and 15 minute or a 3 hour and 40 minute turnover, which means that if a song played at 10 minutes past 10 a.m., that same song would come up 3 hours and 15 minutes later in the 1 or 2 o'clock hour. That's turnover. That's a repeat play. So that's what turnover is. There is no magic number on this. If I'm doing a top 40 radio station, then they used to have about a 3 hour and 15 or 20 minute turnover. There are some hip hop stations now in major markets in the United States that are running a turnover of like every hour and 15 minutes.
Yep.
You know, that are literally playing songs 120, 130 times a week, which is a monumental number to me. I mean, the most, back in the, a few decades ago, I was one of the, and I still do some country consulting, but I was one of the leading country consultants in this business on this side of the pond. And the thing that I was trying to do was, or I wanted to do, was to increase the turnover of currents in country from the average 35 to the average 50, which is what I had. I was rolling with 50 spins a week, 7A, 6P, or 7A to 7 days a week. The turnover was 50 plays. And in the early 90s, that was seen as really radical for that format. But Top 40 at that time had been doing that for, 30 years. So it was no big deal radical. So there's no real magic number. The magic thing is to make sure that your rotations are spread out like this so that all of your songs are going to get the kind of exposure that you want them to get to all of the listeners, whether that listener happens to be somebody who works an overnight shift and they've got you on from, 10 p.m. until 5 a.m. in the morning, or it's somebody that's got an office shift that runs 9 to 5 and they get to have their headphones on while they're sitting there pecking at the computer or whatever they do for their work. You want to make sure that all of the songs that you're playing are being exposed to all of the groups of artists, all of the groups of listeners that come to you weaving in and out of your station during the course of the day, during the course of the week. So you got to think about it and decide.
And this tool absolutely is, absolutely fantastic, because you see on the screen there, okay, there's my power category, for example. Right, okay. So would that be classed as a good rotation?
Yes. Because here's what's going to happen. Look at this. Over a 1 week period, or a 2 week period, the songs in power are going to play in all of the day parts. And explain day part.
Okay,
a day part is a time of day. We usually look at the day parts as the overnight shift, midnight to 6, what we called morning drive, because people were driving. That was 6 to 10.
Also, breakfast show.
Yeah. 10 to 3, 3 to 7, 7 to midnight. Those were the day parts. Those were the parts of the day. And in the States, advertising was sold that way. Morning drive ads cost a lot more than evening ads did. And midday ads usually cost a little less than afternoon drive ads. It's just a period, because what happens is mornings listenership really peaks, afternoons it peaks again. That's day parts. Now, there are some songs, speaking of things Music One can do, there are some songs that you might not want to play in this category. Okay, so on this Diamond Rio song, I might not want to play that song certain times of the day. And this is something that Auto DJ certainly can't do. So out of these 85 songs that I have, or whatever it is in this group, 381 in this one, I might not want this song to play in mornings from 6 until 10, right? Or from 5 until 10. So if I click that button and click red in there, I'm doing a webinar, then that song, out of all of the others that are there, is not going to be scheduled. It will only be scheduled where we have white. So this is, also called day parting. It's also hour restriction in that case.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what that is. Where do you want me to go next?
I was just going to ask Steve, what we're doing here is we're showing Music One Pro.
Mm-hmm.
But is it there's an SE version as well, isn't there? So could you just briefly explain the difference between the two?
Okay, well, SE Special Edition is a stripped down version of the Professional Edition. And the reason we put SE out is because there's really not a good music scheduler for internet radio anywhere that you can afford. Yeah. In the world, there are 4 good music schedulers in the broadcast world. And we're all subscription, although some of us have little buyout versions of the software now. I think Music Master's got some buyout versions. But the other guys, the other 3 companies, were really not interested at all in internet radio because they're subscription and they charge a lot of money. And, why deal with the little guys is kind of how they went about it. And
exactly.
That's still how they are. But 20 years ago, even before RSS came out, we started working first with Live365.com, which was the first host of worldwide internet radio for people. It came out in the late 90s, I think. And we had a relationship with them, and we made our software compatible with their online player. They were not an automation system. They just played stuff the same way Windows Media Player does. Later, that led to me having people come to me looking for a scheduler who were using SAM Broadcaster. Now, SAM was the first well-known worldwide, it was an internet radio
Hey, he's naming all of the stations and playout systems there, isn't he, Chris?
I think he's taking a backhander.
Oh, no, yeah. Come on, Steve.
There we go. Well, here's how how we came about. Is they came to us and they did not have schedulers and they needed to do it. And working with these early guys, we saw their rotation systems. And so let's take a professional rotation system, strip it down so that a complete newbie can learn how it works and then get a good radio station. I will not argue that anybody listening to this cannot. If you're really, a radio geek, like I've been since I had diapers on almost.
Hello, me too.
You can go into a control room and put together a great music mix to fit your ears. And if you're good at it, you can, please an audience with that. Maybe people have done club work, which is not related to radio work really. But the thing is, you can't do that 24 hours a day. I used to be in a control room for 4 hours a day, and it was freaking great. I could pretty much do what I wanted because I was the program director, right? And so I could pick the records and play them and put them in order, and I could get my disc jockeys to follow my instructions as the program director. But I can't be there 24 hours a day, so you got to have a scheduling tool to do it.
Yeah.
We stripped down SE to do these things. The Pro version allows you to have an unlimited number of categories. Those are these things.
And they're the PlayoutONE categories, aren't they, that you can see in PlayoutONE as well?
Yeah. Okay, so you've got categories that hold music cards to schedule, and you've got categories that hold non-music cards. This is imaging for this station. Every time I play that, then, PlayoutONE then picks an image liner, and there might be 15 in that group, and it plays it. The SE version allows 40 categories. You also need, and with Pro, it's unlimited. The SE version allows you to have 10 clocks. The Pro version is unlimited with clocks. Okay. The SE version has 1 clock lineup. The Pro version has as many as you want. Now, what a clock lineup is this tells you which of your format clocks you want to use in each hour of the day. So on this radio station for Sunday, they have liners in these hours, but they've got a 1-hour Sunday show. And that's a 1-hour recording of a church program that they run every week. So Sunday needs its own specific clock lineup because on weekdays at 7 a.m., they're not running that. They're running, these liners. Right? So if I had SE and I wanted to do a 1-hour program on Sunday, then before I scheduled Sunday, I would have to come here and click, the other clock into that slot. And then run my schedule. And when it was finished, I would have to come back here and click, my clock, back. And it's simple to do, but
you have to remember to do it.
Yeah, you got to remember to do it. And most internet radio stations, the smaller ones, only need one clock lineup anyway. Most internet radio stations only need a couple of 3 clocks.
Yeah.
Most of them only need a few categories.
Yeah.
Even big radio set. Look, I never used more than 7 rotation groups, 7 categories in all of my years in radio.
Yeah.
On this radio station, I'm only using these 4.
You can get it too complicated, can't you?
You can get it way, way too complicated. Now, I see some Music One stations, I mean, honest to goodness, have, 300 things over here, right? Most of them, I will say, are liners and promos, and, they save their Christmas and their Easter liners and jingles and things, and they rerun them each year. So they've got a lot of categories. And that would be true for broadcast radio stations, but for internet radio stations, no.
Yeah.
There are fewer functions in the internet version. Here's something in the Links version. What Links can do is I can link voice tracks to songs.
Really?
So yeah, let me switch this right here. Okay, and this is a pro function. So here are some voice tracks. Okay, now here's a voice track that says Big John Picks. Right. So that's a recording that says Big John.
When you say voice tracks, do you mean I think we would call them liners or sweepers? Maybe is that what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Right. Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. This can also work with jingles. This can all work with jingles and everything.
That's what I was going to ask.
In a minute. Yeah. Okay. But this is a pre-recorded thing that says Big John picks the hits, and here's another one. Now I can link that to these songs, right? With this little button here, and then on a format clock, whenever Just Fishin' by Trace Adkins plays, Music One can automatically say, Big John picks the hits, and here's another one, and it goes into Trace Adkins.
Ah, that's how they do it. I always wondered how they did that.
Yeah. Now, if the rest of mine by Trace gets scheduled there, it's not going to play Big John Picks It because it's not linked to it. This thing can also, you can do this with jingles.
Yeah.
Say over here, let's say this was my slow jingle, right? I could link that jingle to songs.
Yeah.
That way. There's another way to do that too. But the linking, there's a lot of other things. I could do hit year stagers, right? So if I've got a stager over here that is hit year 19 whatever, and I could link that stager to all of the songs that are from 2001.
So if it's maybe perhaps you could use it for, say you had 5 pre-recorded Michael Jackson facts, for example, and you could link all Michael Jackson songs to those facts. So if it picks a Michael Jackson track,
precisely,
and have a little thing before it going, hey, what? The Michael Jackson's hair caught fire or something, whatever, on a Pepsi commercial, and that kind of thing. And it could rotate them just before a Michael Jackson song. Yeah,
just like that. That's exactly what that is.
Fantastic.
So that's a pro function. Let's look at the song cards here. There are more things on the song cards.
What are those things there? What are those things you're pointing at?
Right here. These are user-defined sound codes. The main thing that I have to control. Okay, the main thing that I think about when I first sit down to format is how many slow songs am I going to allow per hour? Do I want to allow slow songs to schedule back to back because I want an up-tempo station? And I also put some rules on genders. I generally rule out 2 females back to back, but I personally break that rule all the time. First, I got to say rules in radio are not law. They are, game plans, formatting, and creative rule breaking is always good. Like I can say, I don't want to play 2 slow songs back to back, but sometimes I'm scheduling and Music One will stop and say, hey, I can't schedule this song because there's another slow song before it. And I'll say, well, that slow song next to that one sounds okay. And I'll go ahead and break that rule and drop it in.
And that's surely what the computer can't do. And that's why a music scheduler is hired to, set up the system and do the donkey work. But when it comes down to the creative flow, then that's part of the fun of it, surely.
Yeah. And once you get used to it, this is a very personalized tool. I mean, I developed this based on, people can read on the website how Music One came about, and the principal differences between it and the algorithm or the blueprint that the selector generation schedulers use. Their idea is they schedule the whole day and then you fix everything. My idea was schedule the day, but if you find a problem slot, stop and let me fix it right now. So that's the main, functional difference. Okay, so these are characteristics that I can control. I can say I don't want to play 2 slow songs back to back. I can use tempos in and tempos out that say if a song ends, some songs kind of are medium slow, but they end slow. I mean, you could extend it out, and use those things. But you ask about these things over here, sound codes. Sound codes are also important, and they are very individual. Sound codes are an extra characteristic that you can add to records to control them in certain ways.
Well, that's just every subject of any country song there, isn't it? Drinking, sex, heart.
Yeah. Now, that's like I said. This
is not on there.
Yeah,
Heartbreak.
Right. This is a real-life radio station. I scheduled this old-time country music station for KIKO, is in a suburb of Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so there's a lot of country songs about drinking, right? So I can put that in there, and I can say, I don't want to play 2 drinking songs back to back. Or I can tell Music One to put at least 15 minutes between drinking songs. Or I can say, don't play drinking songs on Sunday morning. Or I can also, there's a lot of, drug references in music now. I'm hearing a lot more pot references coming into country radio now. I could say, don't play a drinking song next to a drug song. And this one right here could be mentioning drinking, and it could also mention smoking weed.
Yeah.
Right? So those are just things, there's a lot
customizable.
Yeah, and they can be it. If you're a jazz station, you would think of other things. Classic rock.
Yeah,
I always
thinking of sex, would you?
Format. I use a format here, or a sound code called long. Yeah, long songs. Sympathy for the Devil, Stairway to Heaven,
Hotel California.
Supper's ready.
Right. So if I'm a classic rock radio station, I'm going to get out of this here. Anyway, but before it, SE has 8 sound codes. Pros get 30 sound codes. SE has, let me close this.
But just before you go to that bit, Steve, I just want to remind our viewers who are watching on Facebook at the minute, we are going to be taking your questions at the end of this webinar. So if you've got anything that you're seeing on the screen, you're thinking, oh, I just want Steve to clarify something, or you've got a general music scheduling question, then please post it in the Facebook chat, and we will ask Steve the question as we get towards the end of the webinar. Over to you, Steve. Sorry to interrupt there.
No, that's okay. I was just looking to see what else I have here. But there's no history in this. I transferred this database to Dave right before we went on the webinar. The rest of the history of this database is on my computer. But if I had the logs on my computer, this screen right here, like the one we were looking at before, this screen would show exactly where this song had played over a 2-week period. So I use this as a checkup to make sure everything's performing the way it should.
Yeah.
And it also creates a history here, and this history will just have a list of when you put it in this category, how many times it played in this category, when you move to other categories, and that will go over the many, however long you got the thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are the categories. Let's go look at format clocks.
Yes, everybody loves a format clock. So come on, tell us then, how do we've obviously got our categories, we've decided where where the songs are going to go and the bits and pieces, but obviously the key to this is obviously getting the right things in the right place, but also having, which I think you told me 3 years ago, having the right amount of calls. That affects the rotation, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. This is where, if I change something on these format clocks, then that's going to change something on the rotations back there. So like right now there's a category called 80s, 70s, and I'm using that, it looks like about, 5 times an hour, say. If I started using that 4 times an hour, that would dramatically change what the 80s, 70s rotation group looks like, what its turnover looks like. Because right now it's being used 4 times an hour all week, right? 668 calls. And if I cut that down to 3 every one of those hours, then this window would look really different. So, but it's easy to adjust. The point is you can see it. It's kind of like fishing, you can see where the places are that you think are the fish, and sometimes they move, and you got to move the boat, and it's just different. Yeah, just check up on it all the time is what I'm saying. A couple of months ago on this radio station, the owner of the radio station contacted me and insisted that he was hearing a song too much, a certain one of these old songs. And I thought, bull, I know what my rotations are, but I had screwed up because I had added some new songs into it. And what I thought was happening wasn't happening anymore. And what was happening on the station was something like this. He was hearing the song play, let me change the time here. Say he heard the song play at noon. And then a couple of days later, he heard it at 9 a.m. And then a couple of days later, he heard it at 7 a.m. And that was my mistake, right? So I corrected that.
Can I just ask a quick question? Because I know a lot of people are thinking it. Other music schedulers, you have to pile in a load of rules to make things happen and make things fit around and push around the hours. Music One doesn't have that many rules, does it? It's all sort of all calculated within the algorithm. That's correct.
Well, yeah, and I'll show you something here. This is of interest to me. We had a lot of stations in the early days tell me that they did not want to switch to Music One from Selector or Music Master because we didn't have a mood field. Now, this is another characteristic that you can use, moods and textures. Very important for other music schedulers because if you tell the other music scheduler, I don't want to play two slow songs back to back, and two slow songs come up and it has to select one of them, it has to select another slow song. How does it select another slow song? Well, they can use moods and say, pick one that's a mood 5 over a mood 3, right? And they have these rules trees. This rule goes to this rule, goes to this rule, goes to this rule. And it's all aimed at getting the software to pick a song that is the least objectionable. I don't want to play two slow songs back to back, but the software has only got slow songs to choose from. So how is it going to choose that slow song? Right. Anyway, so after we had lost a number of prospects that we thought we were going to get, and they had said, well, mood or texture, my partner and I decided, okay, we'll put it in. Virtually nobody uses these. Right. I mean, so we put it in there because we thought we'd get more sales. It was a problem. And we knew you don't really need it. No, you don't need a lot of rules because you are Music One pretty much insists that you plan your rotations in a professional way. Like, if you don't want songs to repeat in the same day part over a 2-week period of time, then don't set it up so that X number of songs used X number of times is going to result in songs playing in the same time of day over and over. Rather, you go here and get it right, and then Music One is going to run. I mean, it just greases the wheels to operate, better. But we don't have a lot of rules because you're going to make the decisions for problems areas as you go along. And there's not a lot of category rules, but let's look at the clock rules. And the clock rules are specific to individual clocks. You can copy the rules from one clock to another. You can use the same rules on all of the clocks if you want to, but each clock has a certain number of rules. And what you can do there is you might say in the overnight show, I don't want to have it's okay on the overnight show to have slow song scheduling back to back, say. In my morning show, which I want to be more up tempo, I don't want slow song scheduling back to back, so I can have different rules.
Yeah.
Here's how they work, okay? This is the tempo rule, and we're not telling Music One what to do, which is what you try to do with other schedulers, how to make decisions. We're telling Music One what you don't want to happen. I do not want to have more than one slow song in a row. That little run box says only one in a run. No slow songs back to back. Over here, I say don't go from a slow song into a medium slow song. And don't go from a medium slow song into a slow song. On my sound codes.
Only one sex song back to back?
Yeah, only one sex. You're going to get a little, and that's all. Come back.
Little sex, okay.
Sounds like my marriage.
That's how she keeps coming. He keeps you coming back. Okay. So all of these, I've said, don't play any of these things back to back. Don't play 2 cheating songs in a row. Don't play 2 breakup songs in a row, right? And I've got the names over here, so just the way it's described. So I cannot play a drinking song next to a drug song, which is number 5.
Yeah.
And I don't want to play a drug song into a drinking song right there.
Uh-huh.
And I can do the same thing for tempos, and I can do the same thing for genders. If I'm using textures and moods, I can do that also.
Wow.
Now, with tempos, maybe just don't play slow songs back to back is not enough for me. I might say I really want to have at least 10 minutes between slow songs, right? Now, when I click that, it turned red, and the reason is this is a redundant rule here. This says don't play slow songs back to back, only one in a row. This says give me 10 minutes between slow songs. So what would happen is Music One would look at this because that's the more strict rule. But if I take that 1 out of there, then it's not red anymore.
Yeah.
You know, and the red just alerts me that I don't need that rule. But in this case, it will spread the slow songs out. It will not let them within 10 minutes of each other. So you would use the separation rule or the run rule. You wouldn't use both.
Right.
The hour rule sets the maximum number of things with that characteristic that I will allow in the hour. And so I could go to heartbreak songs and say, really, I can't take more than 3 heartbreak songs an hour, right? And I can put a number 3 in there, and that's all I would be able to play, which is like that. No more than 3 heartbreak songs an hour, you know, and don't play heartbreak songs back to back.
Yeah.
So also, I'm just seeing on here as well, because I know we have a number of clients that like to have a no repeat work day. Is that what the no repeated songs in the day box does?
Yeah. If you have a no repeated work day, where do my rules go? I clicked it away. Edit. Okay. This would be clock specific, and you would have to give this clock the rule to say, I'm not going to allow anything to be repeated in the day. And I would then take that clock and I would put it into the hours. Let me click weekend here. And typically stations that did the no repeat workday usually did it on the standard, 9 to 5 work period, right? So then I can click in my no repeat workday, at that point. And the clocks that were in there would not allow anything to repeat within that period of time.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So that's what that's for.
Great.
So I'm just conscious we're getting a little close to time here. So I just wanted to move on if we could to, we've planned our categories, we've planned our rules, we've got our clocks in place. The next stage surely is getting the log into the playout system ready for the jocks to play and for the listeners to hear.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to note that everything that we were seeing there is in Playout One as well. So the two are talking to each other.
Yeah. In this case, and we'll jump over to another one here in a minute to see that. This database right here is not connected to the Playout One database that's on this machine. So we can't demonstrate the interconnectivity right now. What happens with this one is I run a schedule and it saves it to a Dropbox, and then the radio station's Dropbox picks it, the radio station picks it up off of Dropbox. So I am only indirectly connected to Playout One, but this one. But here's a quick scheduling session, and this is real world. And I do this station 7 days a week, and it generally takes me about 2 minutes a day.
Right. So, okay, what's happened there then? So obviously you hit the yellow arrow, and then it stopped.
Right. Okay, so it's scheduled through the day, and it does in multiple passes. It schedules the first category midnight to 11 and the next category midnight to 11. Okay, so what's happened here is it's gotten to 2 a.m. in the morning. It's selected over here. It's at the absolute very bottom of the power category. That's what's highlighted right here. And it's got to play every song in that category before it can pick up the deck and start dealing the cards again. That's one of the things that's important in Music One is it never overplays any song. It will play every song in the category the same number of times. And surprisingly, there's not another scheduler in the world that can do that and still never break any formatting rules. Because, take a look at another scheduler, guys, anybody that's online, and if you've got a category that's supposed to have 45 spins a month, And if you open that category and look at history, you'll find a few of those songs got 55 spins last month, and a few of them got 38 spins, and you plan for 45. If you open
that's
that,
a challenge for our viewers. I
Yeah.
look forward to seeing the screen grabs later.
you cannot do it. If you do, then you have a lot of rule violations. I mean, there's a way to say absolutely, but nobody in the world does that because of those problems. Anyway, so Music One has got to schedule this Johnny Cash song. I got to do something with a Johnny Cash song. This stopped and says, look, there's another Johnny Cash at 2:38 in the morning that's already scheduled. And I'm in the artist 2:38. Where is that other Cash song? Oh, here we go. There's a Cash song right here. Right?
Yeah.
And that was in my Legends category. And that's scheduled before Power. So Legends is scheduled all the way to 11 p.m. So it's now making another pass, and it comes here, and it can't schedule Cash because that's there. Now, I could say, I don't care. I want to play it anyway. What I normally do is jump ahead an hour, click on the same category, and over here, Johnny Cash does not violate a rule. It's just 1 hour later, but I wanted Cash to come up at this time of day. I've got my rotation plan for this. He's supposed to come up next on the overnight show. So I jump ahead, and I just manually drop that song in, and then I tell Music One to keep on scheduling. When I do that, it's going to jump back to 2 o'clock, back to that Power, and now, remember, that Cash was the last song in the group. I scheduled it. When I did it, the category turned over, and now I got the whole category to choose from again. So, and what would have happened is I'd have dropped the Cash in, and then I'd have clicked this button. It would have jumped back. It would have filled this in with that Sawyer Brown song, and it will keep on scheduling until it finds the next problem for me. What always happens with this station is we're overscheduling. They have 6 minutes, 4 minutes of commercials an hour. They have two 2-minute breaks. There's one at 18 and one at approximately 45. The fact that it's named that, it fluctuates a little. I am overscheduling, as you see. I have overscheduled past my rules, and Music One stops and says, this hour is too long by 25 seconds.
Oh, God.
Right? Okay, now.
It's a problem, Chris, when you got to hit the news.
Yeah.
Once the time will sort that
That
out.
would be a problem. Okay. And so what I can do is I can go up and turn the rules off. But what's happened is I've got 25 seconds too much. That's the wrong one. I can show you the rule later. But what I do is I'm going to stop and just cut out some stuff. And I just cut this, and I'm cutting a song, and then I'm saying run again. And now it'll find the next problem. And then there's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. This one is a little too short. In this case, it's afternoons. I know that they probably got those spot breaks up there. And I also know that these guys are going to be doing some voice tracking through the day. So I'm not concerned with that. I go to rules and say, okay, for the rest of the day, let's not worry about that undertime rule. I click OK. And
well, this is actually really good because I was sat with a client only on Tuesday, and they just moved over to Music One, and they copied the clocks from the current system that they had, and they started scheduling all their logs, and they were coming out when we were looking at it in PlayoutONE Pro, with 15, 20 minutes worth of extra stuff in the hour, which was never going to get played, and that's obviously going to affect rotations as well, isn't it? So this helps you really trim and make sure you're only using the songs that you really need to be playing.
Yeah. Every radio station that I've known of since the beginning of music scheduling software overschedules 1 or 2 songs every hour because the music director doesn't know if that spot break there is going to be filled or not. Right? So this radio station is setting, it's setting, 4 minutes. I think these breaks are set for that. I haven't looked at them in a while. They're setting these breaks at, 3 minutes. Okay. So they're setting 6 minutes aside an hour for commercials. All right. And maybe they fill those 6 minutes. And if they don't, if they only have 3, if they didn't get any commercials sold on the overnight show, then they're going to need both of these 2 songs, these powers. Because if this commercial break is not filled, and if this commercial break is not filled, then my hour is going to come up pretty close to 6 minutes. Right down there at the bottom, it says the average is going to be 60 minutes and 53 seconds. That's the average amount of stuff that it would come up with if I pulled out those spot breaks. So yeah. So usually stations would overfill with like secondary gold at the end of the hour, which it didn't make quite so much difference if that song didn't get played. But really competitive guys want to know that everything I'm playing, I want it played, right? And I can't have a perfect world, but I want to get dadgum close to it. And so it doesn't surprise me that they overschedule, 15 minutes. You know, I've seen some people overschedule music one by that much, like this one right here. This looks normal on a lot of stations that I see, and maybe that's not important. I mean, there's lots of ways to skin the cat, and there's lots of ways to do good radio, and there's some interesting things that I see, beginning to see coming out of internet radio that I wouldn't have done, but I find them interesting what they're doing.
No, I think it's the internet market and also the small scale market is really emerging, and it's really great that broadcasters and music schedulers can have access to these tools and help them on their way. Now, let me just go to some questions before, because we've only got 10 minutes left. So if you want to ask a question to Steve, it doesn't have to be about Music One. It can be a rotation question. It can be a rules question, whatever you want to ask about music scheduling, Steve will answer it. First question, how would you schedule a news jingle? Because again, I see clients who make a category for news jingle and then schedule that category. That's a bit of a waste of a category, isn't it? We can do it a different way, surely?
Well, everything's got to go into a category, and no, it's not a waste of a category, but you can add something to a clock, and you can change everything on a clock. You can go to properties here. Now, this is in the pro version only. And in the pro version, you can say, I want to get a song from search. Let me see, where is that? A song from search right here. Or I could say a non-song from search. They wanted a jingle. So I could, a specific song. And you can, then select it down with these attributes as to what kind of thing that you wanted to schedule before that. A specific song here, let me tell it a specific non-music track, and then I could select that jingle, the news intro jingle, and click OK, and then that would be, well, you can't see it here. Let me put it in a list view. And then that thing would be right before your news. You could do it that way.
That makes sense. And also, I guess you could do, for example, someone on Facebook's asked how you would schedule, for example, if you were taking an hourly pre-recorded show and you just needed to put that segment in. I guess you would put it in as a non-music or a music item. How would you do that?
You would put it in as a non-music item. And I do have some guys that are running shows where they have different presenters, and the presenters do, say, an hour show, and they send them a 1 hour MP3 each. For each hour of their show. So the guys are scheduling an hour show, which is filled with music, but it's not really, handled in the same way, because you're not going to need music formatting rules for that. You're not going to say, don't play 2 slow songs back to back or whatever. So you would have a, like the church show. Here's this station's church program. It is a 1 hour weekly program, and it's got a category, and that category is on a clock, which is right here, and there's the Christian Connection. And there's nothing in this hour except a legal ID in that 55-minute, and it may be a little bit more, but that commercial, that recording. So there it is. And then that guy goes on to day formats for their Sunday format, and there it is. And that's all it will schedule at 7 a.m. One ID, followed by the church program on Sunday.
One topic of conversation when we get a little bit further to the end of the year, Christmas. How do we deal with Christmas when it comes to music scheduling? And specifically, most stations will have their clocks all set up. Do they then have to clone, each clock and then change a position for Christmas songs? How does that kind of work in music? Or
okay, what I do, and I save these from year to year, and I can clone the clock. Say this was my first year. Clone the clock. And then I name it my, if I can spell, just make it look good. Okay, this is an entirely different clock. Now then, I just right-click and change what's on the clock, and I can select another category, and this is going to be my Christmas category. And then I can bounce around a little bit. And I'm now down to about 15 past the hour. You see there that 80s, 70s there. I'm going to change that to be a Christmas rotation. Right? And now I can take this clock and put it onto my clock lineup. And I usually start heavy with Christmas for the first few days after Thanksgiving. Then I go a little bit lighter, and then I heavy up as I get further into the season. So I can change, I say if I'm just using this one clock, and it's a week into Christmas and the season, and now I want to add one more song a year, one more song an hour, I just open this and add another Christmas there, and I don't have to do anything else. I save the Christmas clocks for use year after year. I change what's in my rotations, because there may be some good new Christmas songs come out, and I've got some new stuff going each year. But that's how you handle it.
How many days can you schedule ahead in Music One, someone asks?
As far ahead as you want to schedule. Music One Pro is subscription. You can schedule, we generally get paid quarterly. And so we put in, 150 or 200 schedules, how we control the usage of the software. And then that's more than they would use in 3 months, 30 days. The people that get SE, we put in a 400 schedules at a time, 1 year. We don't allow, if you buy SE, you buy SE, but you have to get a free update each year. That tells us that you're still using SE, and that's also a way we control piracy. We used to use dongles, but nobody likes to use dongles. So if you have SE, then you can schedule 400 days in advance if you want to.
It's quite incredible. Someone asks, how do you do day parting of specific sweepers for breakfast? Is it better to have a big sweepers category and then day part the specific sweepers in that, or would you have a specific breakfast sweeper category?
I would have a big one and day part them. And there's not anything in here. There's only one in here, but here's what I just had a station do this here this week. And okay, this guy right here, if I restrict this like that, now this is just one that's in the group. Say I got 15 in the group. This one can only schedule on Sunday because that's the only open slot. I would have another one in this group that, let me clear that. And there, okay. Almost. Let's see here. Across. Let me see if I can deselect that. Yes. Okay. This one now can only schedule on Tuesday. So that's how you do it. And you put them in the all in the category and say you've got one for every day of the week. And I just set up a station on this yesterday, just like this. His Monday jingle is only going to play Monday or Imager, and only on Tuesday and only on Wednesday. That's how you do it.
Final question before we go tonight. And I know obviously that viewers can contact you directly on specifics about Music One, and I'll give those details out in just a second. It's a good one. I can't believe actually we've not covered it because it came up yesterday actually with a client I was sat with. Marco says, is it possible to have a song in more than one category? If not, how would you deal, for example, with a power song that you also want to be in another specific category? You
can do that in the Pro version with a selection category. The selection category is for that specific purpose. This is a selection, and let's say this is my top 20, right? And so I create this new category, and selection is right down at the bottom there, number 36. Notice that it is showing in italics font, right? So now I can take a song, and, I could pull my top 20. Let's take Merle Haggard, Daddy Frank, and I can pull them into top 20. So now I can, top 20 is a regular category. I can do whatever I want to. I can put it on format clocks. But if I open the Merle Haggard song inside the top 20, notice it shows that he's in the Legends category because that's where he really is. So this is kind of a ghost card, but it operates independently of the real one, Daddy Frank, which is in the Legends category. So that's how you do it. And that's very handy. I use, a lot of stations use that. Again, that's just another pro thing that you can do.
It's amazing. It really is. And Chris, we started this webinar tonight posing the question, okay, so why is Music One different to Auto DJ? And I think we have our answer in front of us.
Well, it's not that different.
It's a little different.
Yeah.
So it's really, really wonderful. And obviously, I know, Steve, users can ring you, email you anytime. Customers, I know you have great chats with about music scheduling and rotations, and that's one of the great advantages of being your customer. Your website, musicone.pro, and they can also sign up for the blog, can't they? Your
The blog is just information about Music One. I do a blog post about every 2 weeks or so. I do another training video usually about something that's on the software. All of those are available if you just go to musicone.pro, which is the blog, but you can download the software for there. You can run it. I'll give you a code for full trials. We have some specifics about Music One with PlayoutONE interface, which we did which I saw in the last video, last month's webinar that I watched the guys do. And that can be seen too on PlayoutONE's Facebook. The one that they did last month, I thought was really good because it showed a good interface or interaction between Music One and PlayoutONE, whereby you add a song in PlayoutONE, it shows up in Music One. If this title is wrong, I can correct this title, and it corrects it in PlayoutONE, which ultimately means that you've got the correct title streaming in people's player as they listen to your radio stations.
Yeah.
So there's that. Also, we are, in honor of this webinar, I'm going to do a $50 off on SE for anybody that's watching that doesn't own it right now until the end of the month, which is next Tuesday. So the SE price is $249. That's about 190 pounds GBP, I think. And so there's $50 off of that for the next several days if someone wants to get SE.
How generous.
Yes, we'll do that.
Thank you very much. No, that's
you're
really
very welcome. You're very welcome. Pro subscriptions, we can talk about that. Just contact me and I'll tell you what it is. Pro is a subscription, and we try to make it really easy for internet guys, but if it's coming out of your pocket, you'd probably want to buy SE. You could always upgrade to Pro later. But it starts pretty low, and for broadcast radio stations, we still knock the price about 25% under what the other guys are charging. I'm talking the other three major schedulers.
Steve, it's been an absolute pleasure, and we thank you for your time and joining us on the webinar. And I'm sure lots of people are going to be referencing this video in the past and having a look at what you've suggested. And so thank you very much for your time. Chris, thank you very much. I will see you next week as we continue on the PlayoutONE Pro journey. And we have some exciting news for our next webinar in August, because we know there's a lot of people out there who are starting new stations, and they have some ideas on how the music and how the playout's going to work. But what about engineering and building and all that sort of stuff? We've got an expert coming on with us in August to talk about that. And we hope you can join us. Again, thank you very much for joining us here at Radio Station Solutions. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll speak to you hopefully next month. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.